Hey, it's Mrs. Matz again with yet another equation lesson. Today I'm going to be asking you to multiply and divide in order to find unknown values. Oftentimes those unknown values are x, which you might be a little suspicious right now. You might be thinking in your head, what if math teachers are really just pirates and just want us to find x so that we, the teachers, can get the buried treasure? Have you thought about that yet? If not, maybe you should. You do kind of look like a pirate. So today I'm going to help me find x. We're going to be finding the value of x, or the value of the unknown, by isolating that unknown, that variable, by using inverse operations. And we're going to continue as we use inverse operations to do the exact same thing to the other side. We're going to keep those balances equal. But we're going to be using multiplication and division today. Hey, let's find x. What is the value of this unknown variable? Let's get started finding the x. Maybe there's buried treasure underneath. So x is being times by 3, and that equals 120. Remember, there is that invisible times sign right there. So how can we isolate x if it's being times? Well, what is the opposite of times? What is the inverse of times? It is divide. So if we have a number and a variable being times, the way we isolate it is by dividing, and that kind of undoes the multiplication. So the way I want you to show that we are dividing is not using this symbol, but using the fraction symbol. Okay, that line right there, we're going to turn it into a fraction, and this is now 3 divided by 3. Now tell me something. What is 3 divided by 3? It's just 1, isn't it? So this becomes 1x. Or how else could we just write it? We could just write it as x, right? That is how those inverse operations worked. It was 3 times x, but then when we did the opposite and divided it by 3, it like dissolved. It kind of swoofed out of the picture. So that's why we use inverse. Now we have x isolated. We have x by itself. But now our balance is unequal, right? Because we divided by 3. How can we keep it with the equal sign? Well, we have to do the exact same thing on the other side. We have to divide by 3 over on the other side of the equation. So 3 divided by 120 is 40. Okay, and today it might be really smart to like plug that in and check your solution. What is 3 times 40? Oh, it is 120. Boom, checked. X equals 40. There's your x, Mrs. Matson. Okay, so that's timesing. What if you have an equation where the variable is being divided by a number? Here we have our unknown, and if it says solve for the unknown, they want us to figure out what does v equal. Well, v is being divided by 8. What is the inverse or the opposite of division? Multiplication. So we are going to multiply by 8 in order to get rid of it. And let me show you how I like to multiply, how I like to show you. So this kind of looks like a fraction, so I'm just going to turn that 8 into a fraction. So we have 8 times v divided by 8. And what can we do when we divide fractions? Can we cross simplify? Yes, we can. And what would the 8 and the 8 become? They'd become 1. So once again, we are left with 1v, or just v, correct? That is why when we have a division, that's why we multiply, because then they cancel out and go poof and are gone, leaving us with just the variable. Again, though, if we're going to do times by 8 on this side to keep it balanced, we have to times by 8 on this other side. Now, we could times by 8 here, or in order to solve it, we can times by 8, just like this, right? That would be 40. 8 times 4 is 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. This is 2 times 8 is 16, 17, 18. Okay, 18. And I'm going to remember when I multiply by decimals, I count how many numbers are behind the decimal and then count how many times and go in to the problem. So V equals 188. Now, in order to like check it, I am saying that V equals 188. We can check it by now putting it in and saying 188 divided by 8. Does that really equal 24.5? Let's find out. 2, 4, that's not 4. What am I doing wrong? 2 times 8 is 16, bring 28. 28 will go to 8. 2 times 4 is 32. Did I do something wrong? Should be 3. Because that would be 24. 4.5. Oh, 4.0 would give me 5. Ooh, I did something wrong. I did something wrong in my multiplication. Let's see what it was. 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Ah, friends. There it is. I multiplied wrong. That was a computation mistake. I'm glad I checked my work because then I could see that, yeah, this is not the same as this. So I know I'm in mistake. So 16, 17, 18, 19. So it's not 188. It's 196. All right, let's do a different color and check it. 196 divided by 8, that would still be 2, giving me 36, which would be 4. Oh, this looks much better. Add a decimal and a 0 to drop it down and bring that decimal up and get 5. So, oh my gosh. That, my friends, is why you check your work. All right, so V is actually 196. Okay, so May ran 14 laps around a track for a total of 4,200 meters. The equation 14D equals 4,200 can be used to find the distance D in meters she ran each lap. Solve the equation. So solve the equation. We don't know what D is, so we need to figure out what D is, isn't it? Now, to solve for D, we need to get it isolated. It is currently being times by 14. So we need to do the opposite of times to undo this cute little coefficient variable multiplication love that's going on. So let's split them up. Let's divide by 14 because 14 divided by 14 leaves us with just D. And then to keep our balances equal, we need to now divide by 14. I'm going to do that off to the side. 14 times 2 is 28. 14 times 4 is 456. Too much. 14 times 3. Oh, get out of the way, Mrs. Madsen. Is 342. Oh, that's perfect. I love that. Okay, but we still need to bring up those zeros as well. So D equals 300. Should we now check it to see if it's correct? Yeah. 14 times D, well, we now know D is 300. Hopefully, we get 4,200. Hopefully, if Mrs. Madsen did the work correctly, we'll get 4,200. Let's see if she did it correctly. That's 0, 0, 12. I'm going to times everything by 1, but I'm going to put a 0. Then I'll go 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 3 is 3. Add that up. I do. I get 4,200. Whew. I did it correctly that time. So D equals 300. D stood for the distance in meters she ran. So she ran 300 meters in each lap. Very cool. Okay. I want to show you a common mistake that I see. I'll have students look at this and be like, oh, I know it. A equals 5 because 5 times 5 is 25. And they just do it mentally. They don't even try to do the inverse operation. They just think they know it. But if they were to check it and replace A with 5, what is 5 divided by 5? Is that 25? No, it's not. It's 1. So there's no way that A equals 25. So you really need to show your work and show the inverse operation and do it on both sides. then you won't make mistakes like this, okay? So I need to get a by itself to know what the value of a is in order to solve for the equation. But it's being divided by a 5. What is the inverse of division? Multiplication. So if I just go times by 5, remember that's really like 5 over 1, right? And then that means you can really cancel those out. So that leaves me with a. Now, in order to keep things equivalent, am I getting times by 5 over here? Yes, I am. And that keeps me balanced. And so I end up with 125. Now, when I write it to check it, I get 125 divided by 5. Does that equal 25? Why, yes, it does. So make sure you show your work. Make sure you do your work. Here's another fun one. So you have 2/3 n, 2/3 n, which is 2/3 times n, correct, equals 1/4. You guys know how to divide fractions. You know how to times fractions. So just because they're fractions, still do the steps. I'll show you though. Okay, so if this is times, we need to divide by 2/3. This might look a little funny, right? If I go divide by 2/3, divide by 2/3, okay? But it doesn't really matter because we're going to cancel it out. Now over here, let's do it this way. 2/3 or 1/4 divided by 2/3. Do you remember to keep, change, and flipperoo? Yeah, that's awesome. So when we keep, change, flip, we're going to see if we can cross simplify, which we can't. So let's just multiply straight across now. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 2 is 8. I have that n equals 3/8. But I'm going to rewrite the equation, and now I'm going to check with what I think n is. Let's see what we get. Ooh, these I can simplify. I can simplify those two. So when I cross multiply, I get 1/4, which is what I got over here. So I can be certain that n equals 3/8. We good there? Okay. I want to show you another common mistake that I see, and it's a problem like this. And students will be like, all right, we're timesing. I know the opposite of that is to divide by 1/3, or you can write it like this, right? Cancel it out. And then they come over here and they're like, oh, I know Mrs. Madsen told me if I'm going to divide by 1/3 over here, I have to divide by 1/3 over here. So they'll go 1/3 divided by 15. Okay, now while technically that's correct, it's just written wrong. The way that you need to write it is you need to divide it by 1/3. You need it on the end. So don't put it at the beginning, put the division on the end. So it ends up being 15 divided by 1/3. We're going to keep, we're going to change, we're going to flip, and it's going to give us 45. Now, if you were to have done it the 1/3 divided by 15, you would have ended up with 1/45. Okay, and then when you plugged it in to see if it was correct, you would have got something like way weird, like I don't know what that is, a fraction of an amount, right? You wouldn't have gotten 15. So you may make that mistake, but as long as you check your work and plug it back in to see if it's correct, you should be fine. If I plug it back in, I'll get 1/3 times, let's see, I said n equals 45. So let's plug that in now. And that will give me, if I divide both of those by 3, I'll get 15 over 1, which is the same as 15. So 45 does equal n. Okay? All right, that's how you use multiplication and division to solve one-step equations. Make sure you do the inverse operation, and then make sure you keep things balanced. For your test today, I want you to see if you can tell me first what the mistake is that this person made, and then what is the correct value of the unknown. Okay, what's the mistake? Well, if you were to do this on your own, you would have written this, and then you would have been like, oh, this is time, so I'm going to divide by 6, and then you would have divided by 6 as well, right? You would have kept it equal. These guys divided by 6, but then they decided to times by 6, which was going to give them an answer that's very wrong. So that was their mistake. they didn't do the same thing to both sides. And so the answer is wrong, okay? So now what is the correct value of the unknown? Let's figure it out. 14.4 into 6 is, bring that decimal straight up and get 2.4. So I think not 86.4, I think 2.4. But I'm going to check it. 2.4, I'm going to plug that into there, right? Times it by 6 and get 12, 13, 14. There's one number behind the decimal, so I'm going to go one decimal in. And yeah, I do get the same value. All right. Have fun with practice today and make sure you use those inverse operations and you keep the equation balanced. Good luck to you. Bye.